So tonight we have the incredible privilege and honor of hearing from Rabbi Dovid Bashevkin, who's the Director of Education for NCSY and an instructor at Yeshiva University, where he teaches courses on public policy, religious crisis, and rabbinic thought. After studying in Ner Yisrael, he completed rabbinic ordination at Yeshiva University's Rabbi Yitzchak Elchanan Theological Seminary, as well as a master's degree at the Bernard Revel Graduate School of Jewish Studies, focusing on the thought of Rav Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin under the guidance of Dr. Yaakov Elman. He is currently pursuing a doctorate in public policy and management at the New School's Milano School of International Affairs, focusing on crisis management. Rabbi Dovid Bashevkin is also the author of 4 books, the NCSY Just One Haggadah, Synagogue, Sin and Failure in Jewish Thought, Berogas Rachem Tizkar, and his latest, a compilation, Top 5, a compilation of his beloved column in Mishpacha magazine. So Rabbi Bashevkin's going to be on in just a moment, and then we'll be getting started. So we just introduced Rabbi Bashevkin, and it's really an honor and a privilege for him to be here with us. I haven't shared any stories, don't worry, but it's really an honor and privilege for him to be here. I really, truly count him as one of my Rebbeim, and NCSY has been a huge part of my life, and certainly one of the people at the helm of the organization, really from the top down, making an incredible difference on the lives of hundreds, if not thousands of teens all around the country in both the US and Canada is Rabbi Bashevkin. It's really an honor and privilege for him to be here. And I didn't mention it yet, but I might as well, that he is arguably the most meaningful person in the Jewish people, considering he's been the only guest to reappear on the Meaningful People podcast.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Kyle. That's very kind of you. So am I going? Are we?
Going. Take it
okay. On. What a joy! What a joy to be with Chevra, to be with friends. The week of Purim. We'll try to talk a little bit. Well, so many cameras are off. We got about 5 people on this call. You know, the middle of the night for me. Why not put our cameras on? Why not put our cameras on? I don't know. I don't mean to call you out. I just teach enough that I don't know. It's nice for me on a weeknight at 8:35 to come on and see some faces. I'll share a Purim idea. Kyle's very sweet to do this. It's very sweet that you're arranging this. I don't think we're going to talk as long as Kyle probably wants us to, and I hope that's okay with you, brother Kyle. But I'm going to start with an interesting self-promotional question, a self-promotional question. Whoa, Jonathan, rocking out a little guitar. I love that, brother. I love that. We have Sam Ash Sundays in my house. I don't know. You're in Toronto. I know you have Sam Ash in Toronto. That's the music. That's like the big music chain. We go to Sam Ash every Sundays, where my 4-year-old gets guitar lessons. Doesn't know what he's doing, but he loves it. And he rocks out. He rocks out like that. So here's my self-promotional question. You ready? Self-promotional question. Where's my other shtickle? I don't even know where it is. Okay. Self-promotional question. I wrote 2 books. I wrote 4 books, but I wrote 2 that we're going to talk about. One book, which just came out, which is really like why I'm here. I'm plugging my book. Called Top 5. It's a book of Jewish humor. Jewish humor. What? Jewish humor book. It's a book of lists of insider ideas in the Jewish community. Like, let's do a quick top 5 right now. Here's a quick one. Top 5 Jewish noises. Noises that only Jews make. Who can do it? Give me one. Jonathan, give me a Jewish noise. Oh, you're not. You're on mute. You're on mute. They won't let you do it. Okay. So the classic one is "oy." We're gonna get to that. The classic one is "oy." Jews love saying it. Well, "oy" is too easy because "oy" is like That's like the people who associate like bagels and lox with Judaism. Like we're more than that. We have better noises than that. Give me, is the chat working, Kyle? You can put it in the chat. I don't know if you're allowed to talk. Shalom, give me a Jewish noise. Can you take yourself off mute? What's a Jew?
Oh, I just said new.
Oh, new. Did you read the list?
No, I know it from from being exposed to this.
New is up there. Like new. Jews love new. N-U, new. That's totally on the top 5. Shalom, give me a Jewish noise. Lay it on me.
Nice. This one's kind of rare. I was like,
So that wasn't on there, but that's so good. I think I'd have a tough time like transliterating that one. Here's a Jewish noise you might not be familiar with, but we're gonna lay it on you anyways. Here's one. Only Jews make this noise, and when Jews grow up among Jews and then they go out to work in the workplace, you'll sometimes hear them accidentally use this noise. Jews love going this. They love pshung. Oh my gosh. What is that? When did Jews get so into pshung? Psh, ooh, psh. Jews love a good psha. So that's in my top 5. That's in my top 5 noises. Let's do another top 5. Here we go. Let's see if we get this. Top 5 wordless Jewish communications. No noise, a Jewish hand motion that only a Jew would know this. Jonathan, lay it on me. Lay it on me, Jonathan. Oh, you're still on mute. Kyle runs this.
Wait, I have it. Like salt shaker. Like every time.
Did you see the list?
No.
That's my number 1. This.
Yeah.
There's no other world that you go like this. If you go like this in an NBA game, they bring LeBron his puff powder. You know what I'm talking about? They don't know what this is. They don't know what this is. But at every meal after you wash, before you make hamotzi on Shabbos, nobody's talking. Everybody's doing all the hand motions. They're going like this. This is a classic one. Did you wash your hands yet? They love it. This is an advanced one in shul. This is an advanced one in synagogue. Yeah, Ami knows it. This one. It looks like you're revving a motorcycle. What are they doing? They're giving out Galila. What on earth? So we have a lot of time. We have a lot of fun things. So the first book that I wrote is this book called Top 5, which is again these lists of like these cutesy Jewish ideas. And we could do more. We could do more soon. I'll have you think about one. We're not going to go through them. Top 5 honorary Jewish products. These are products that are made by non-Jews. They're for non-Jews, but Jews like adopted it as if it's their own. This is a tough one. Hold off, Jonathan. I want you to let it percolate. Honorary Jewish products. Okay. Well, I wrote another book that you may or may not have heard of. It's a little bit more advanced. I can't find a copy. I don't know where it went. It's called, here it is. There it is. Here we go. Synagogue. Sin and Failure in Jewish Thought. Sin and Failure in Jewish Thought, right? This sweet puppy. You get this one on Amazon. You get this one in your local Jewish bookstore. You get it from Israel bookshops. You can buy them all. I'll put the link in so you can buy it and I can plug my product. Kyle's not going to invite me back to any more of his late night.
I will happily plug your product for you.
Late night Twitter powwows. I don't blame you. I'm here to push product. That's what we're doing. We're having a good time. But I also want to share like a little bit of a Purim idea. And here's my self-promotional question. What is the connection? Why would somebody, I literally put a link to my book in the chat, pathetic. But well, in life, this is life. We're here. We're doing it. We're having a good time. Why would somebody write a book on sin and failure? That's dark. Failure, difficulty. And their next book is a book of Jewish laughter, having a good time. Are these connected ideas? And I believe, and that's what I want to talk about tonight, is that these two themes are actually incredibly connected, particularly through the lens of Purim. Allow me to share with you. There's an idea about Purim that is cited in mystical texts and not so mystical texts that says that the holiest day of the year, Yom Kippur, is literally pronounced Yom Kippurim. It's a day that's like Purim. There's a connection between Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, and Purim, which seems like the most frivolous day of the year. The day where people dress up, people have meals together, they have a good time. And the question is, what is this connection? And I want to share with you what I think is actually quite a profound idea about the connection between these 2 days. The Talmud says in Maseches, in Tractate Yuma, which talks about the prayers that we say, Kyle, the crowd here, this is a yeshiva crowd. Where are we from? It's a mix.
Mostly, so yeah.
It's a mix.
Mostly the ones who will be listening to the recording are probably mostly not, so.
Where do you share this recording?
So we have a group. The group chat itself is about 60 people, so it's really a mix of people. Just looking at the people that are here now,
and they're going to want to listen to this little banter that we're having now? Okay, whatever works, brother. Whatever works. God bless you. We love you, Kyle. We love you. There's a beautiful idea that if you look at the way we daven on Yom Kippur, there is a prayer that we say over and over again that's from the Gemara. The Gemara, the Talmud, has a prayer that became a part of our Yom Kippur davening that says, Hare ani lefanecha, I am before you. Who could finish this line? Anybody remember this line in the Yom Kippur davening? We say it 100 times. Elokai Netzor, right? Ad shalom natzarti eini kadai. Before I was created, I was unworthy. Now that I'm created, I'm even worse off. Hare ani lefanecha, I am before you, God. Ke what? Shalom, do you remember?
Kechli male busha uchlima.
Kechli male busha uchlima. I am a vessel of embarrassment and of indignity, of lowliness. I'm garbage. This is what we say on Yom Kippur. We say that we're nothing. That's what we say on Yom Kippur. We have a song that we sing after we read the Megillah that is the parallel to this. What do we sing in Shoshanas Yaakov? Right after we read the Megillah, in synagogues across the country, across the world, we always say the same song. We say Lehodia to announce, Shalom, what's the end of this? Shekol Lehod, where there's a song, right? If I start singing, then Kyle's not going to be able to share the recording. That's the rule. We can't share recordings with me singing. Lehodia, Lehodia, Kyle, you're finished. You just can't go out. Lehodia, Kol Kavecha. Do we know this song or no? We don't know the song? Shoshanas Yaakov? How does it end? Lehodia, She. Nobody knows the end of the show. There's a song. There it is, Zev Mess. I appreciate you, brother. Lahodia, to announce and proclaim to the world. That deserves a Busha. I appreciate that. Why, Melnick? Lahodia, to announce to the world, Shekol Kavecha, all who anticipate you, Lo Yevoshu, will not be embarrassed, Velo Yikomu, and will not suffer from indignity. These are parallel to one another. On the one hand, on Yom Kippur, we announce to the world that we are vessels full of embarrassment, full of indignity. And on Purim, we say the exact opposite. We don't say, Hare ani levrecha kechli male busha v'chlima. We say the exact opposite. No, we're not full of embarrassment and indignity. We won't be embarrassed. We won't have any indignity in the world. Why do we have this contrast? To understand this, I want to share with you, what does the word busha mean? What does it mean to be embarrassed? We have the word busha. We talk about being embarrassed, but we very often don't truly appreciate or understand what contributes to embarrassment. So let me open up. It's a small enough group, even though Eden Craft and Thoughts from ... haven't turned their cameras on. Kyle, I think you should kick this chevra out of the room, to be quite honest with you. I love them that they're here, but you can't come on at 8:30 at night, cameras off. They're just humoring you, Kyle. They're not even paying attention. I'm calling them out. They're not even listening. You got to kick them out. There got to be consequences, brother. There got to be consequences. I got out of my room tucked my kids in, could have done a million things to be here with you tonight, and they don't even turn their cameras on, and they don't even acknowledge that I'm calling them out. It is a chutzpah, and I'm letting them know that. And I'm letting you know that, Kyle, even though I love
Well, Rav, if they're not listening, then I don't think they would hear the Rav calling them out.
I know, that's the problem. That's the problem. I'm busting your chops, Kyle. I still love you. But you gotta say it. You gotta say it. Oh, Eden Craft. Oh. Okay. More information. I'm sorry, Eden Craft. We love you. I'm so sorry about that. Okay. I'm just having a good time. Okay. I don't know what's going on. I'm busting people's chops for no reason. This recording can go nowhere. That's the rule. Okay. What does the word Busha mean? So the word Busha appears for the first time in Chet Adam Harishon, in the third perek of Bereshis, when Adam Harishon sins. It appears again in a very curious context in the beginning of Parshas Kisisa. In the beginning of Parshas Kisisa, which, do you know what stories in Parshas Kisisa? It's almost a retelling of the story of Chet Adam Harishon, of the sin of Adam eating from the tree of knowledge. It's like a repeat story in a different context. What story appears in Parshas Kisisa? Anybody know? What's with all the questions, Bashevkin? Why don't you just give a shear and stop asking everybody questions? I don't know, because it's a small room. I'm trying to work the room. I speak to big groups, and you don't get to interact. And here we have a group of 10 people. Why not interact a little bit? Like, why not? Okay, Parshas Kisisa has the story of the Chet Ha'egel, the golden calf. If you read this parsha, this is just between friends. This isn't a part of what I'm saying tonight. If you read the parsha, the entire story actually parallels the Purim story. The Purim story starts because the Jewish people miscalculate how long the exile of Yechaniah is going to be. They were told it's going to be 70 years. It lasts a little bit longer. So they say, okay, we're going to be in exile forever. Let's go eat at Sudas HaChashverosh. And it ends with a big party, everybody getting dressed up in costumes and going ad lo yada. Chet Ha'egel begins with Moshe Rabbeinu going up the mountain, and the same thing happens. They miscalculate how long he's supposed to be up there. And they say 40 days and 40 nights. They check their watch. They miscalculate the time. He's not back. Okay, I guess he's never coming back. Let's serve a golden calf. That's what I would do. If the teacher doesn't come back to class for 10 minutes late, I take out a golden idol. I start bowing down to it. It's happened to the best of us. And then what happens at the end of the parsha? You got to read the end of Parshas Kisisa. You could roll up that parsha and smoke it. It's such an interesting parsha. At the very end of that parsha, if you look at it, the very end, if you look at the very end of the parsha, you know what happens? It's the only time the words ad, right? We say on Purim, ad de lo yada, until you don't know. You gotta really like transcend yourself on Purim. The only time the words ad de lo yada appear in the Torah is by Moshe Rabbeinu, describing Moshe Rabbeinu after he finally petitions God and says, God, we need a second set of luchos. We need to be forgiven for Chet Ha'egel. What does it say? Moshe lo yada. Moshe didn't know that his face was shining. He uses that language. So what does Moshe do at the end of the parsha? Does anybody know? It's wild. It's straight out of the Purim story. What does he do?
Covers his face with a mask.
He puts on a mask, brother. He puts on a mask. Exactly. Straight out of the Purim story. And when historically, on what day did this happen? When do we get forgiven for Chet Ha'egel? What day is this?
Yom Kippur?
Yom Kippur. It's all coming back together. This story took place on Yom Kippur. Again, a Yom Kippur Purim connection baked into the most delicious of Parshios, Kisisa. But here's the point that I want to get to. The story begins with Moshe Rabbeinu being delayed. They think he's supposed to come down in 40 days and 40 nights, and Moshe Rabbeinu does not come down. The way the Torah describes it, if you look at the beginning of the 32nd chapter in Parshas Kisisa, I'm not sure if Ami Bloom is like watching Netflix right now or Hulu, or he's with us. Now I'm busting his chops for no reason, but he's got that eye where it's like, I think he's watching a documentary on Netflix.
No, I got Rav Kluger open.
You got Rav Kluger open. Oh, wow. Unbelievable, Ami Bloom. Unbelievable. Rev Kluger himself would tell you.
I'm
that if
not
you're here-
reading it. I'm not reading it.
If
This,
you're here, be with us, brother. But I love you. I'm busting your chops for no reason. It's Purim. It's Adar. We're allowed to bust chops. That's what it's about.
Yeah.
So it says that
No.
Moshe Rabbeinu delayed from coming down from the mountain. How does it describe Moshe Rabbeinu being delayed from coming down? It says, Boshesh Moshe loredes min hahar. Boshesh, he was delayed. The word for busha that we usually associate with embarrassment in the beginning of Parshas Kisisa refers to being delayed, to coming late. What is the connection? Why is the word busha, embarrassment, associated with Moshe Rabbeinu coming down late from the mountain? What does being delayed and showing up late have to do with being embarrassed? Well, somebody might say, if you show up late to a meeting, you'll be embarrassed. Okay, that's an example of being embarrassed, but that's not a fundamental connection. I want to pause everybody now and get real for 10 seconds. I want you to think of a time in your life when you were actually embarrassed. A real time in your life. And I don't want you to share it, because if you really thought about it and you really were embarrassed in a real way, it would be too painful to share. A time in your life where you really were like, oh my God, like I gotta like crawl into a cave. I had this many times. Most of my most embarrassing stories recently have to do with posting to the wrong WhatsApp group. It happened two in recent memory. One time happened today. I texted somebody sent me a clip of a very chashuv rabbi. And I texted him back. I said, oh, this is a great clip. I get these clips too every day, but I never ever listen to them. I just don't have the time. I accidentally responded to the rabbi. I sent that text to the rabbi. And he responded. He says, do you want me to take you off the WhatsApp group? I'm like, Rabbanu Shalom, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be in this world anymore. I don't want to be here. What I posted to like you sometimes you have a side chat, like a side chat. You're having a side chat, you're talking, you accidentally put it in the main chat. There are 300 people there. Beam me up, get me out of this world. I don't want to be here anymore. It's a nightmare. It's an absolute nightmare. What causes embarrassment? Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to listen closely because this is real. What causes embarrassment is when there is experiential delay, when there is dissonance between who we are, how we see ourselves, and how the world sees us. What causes embarrassment is that when I look at myself as a great Jew. I look at myself as somebody who's wealthy, who's important. I look at myself as somebody smart. I look at myself as somebody who's a great dresser. And then you step out into the world and the world tells you, no, you're not. You're not that smart. You're not that chashuv. You're not as frum as you think you are. You're not as learned as you think you are. You're not as scholarly as you think you are. You're none of those things. You have a moment where Dovid Bashevkin, I think socially, I know what's going on. When I say the wrong thing to somebody, I'm mortified. I think I'm funny sometimes. You make a joke at an NCSY event, you're in the middle of the circle, it falls flat, nobody laughs. You're mortified. You're mortified. If my inner conception of myself is that I'm funny and then I make a joke that falls flat, I'm mortified. When my inner conception is I'm the shark guy in the class. I'm the person who's always learning Gemara. And then all of a sudden I get something mixed up. I end up clapping for Al Chait, Shimon Esrei on Shabbos when you're not supposed to do it, or something big. I forgot to wear tzitzis one day, and the loser in class calls me out on it, and I'm like, oh my God, like I thought you're the shark one. I thought you're the frum person. I thought you're the one who tries to do all the great things, and then all of a sudden I'm called out on it. There's a dissonance. The reason why the word boshesh, meaning to be delayed, is connected to busha is because what causes embarrassment is when there's a delay between where we are and what we want to become. Because internally, I view myself as somebody who's already important, as somebody who's already great, who's already achieved, who's already smart, who's already funny. And then outside, when I step into the world, I'm none of those things. I make a joke that falls flat. I pronounce a word wrong. I do something that highlights the dissonance between how I see myself and what I want to become and where I actually am. There are two ways that we can deal with Busha. There are two ways that we can deal with dissonance. One model is the Yom Kippur model. What do we do on Yom Kippur with our Busha? We act as if. We pretend as if there's no gap. We pretend as if there's no delay. We act as if we have already arrived. On Yom Kippur, we dress in all white. We do teshuvah. We take on all sorts of stringencies. We act as if we've already arrived. We try to erase the gap. We try to erase the dissonance. Act as if and pretend like it's not there. And that's hard because we know it's still there, which is why on Yom Kippur we say that we're a kli, we're a vessel, mole busha v'chlima. We're still filled with embarrassment. We're pretending like we're already there, but deep down in our heart of hearts, we know we're not. We know deep down in our heart of hearts, and even though we try to get the reputation of somebody who knows how to learn and who's important and all those things, in our heart of hearts, we know we're not there. On Purim, we do something differently. On Purim, instead of acting as if we're already there, we embrace the gap. We embrace the delay. And we look around and we look at everybody else. Ami looks at Kyle, looks at Mordechai, looks at Eden. We can't see Eden, but Melnick. We all look at one another, and for one day, we acknowledge the fact that we're all dressing up. We all have Busha. We all have experiential delay between what we want to become and where we really are. On Purim, we acknowledge, we mind the gap. Like if you've ever ridden a New York City subway, when you step on, it says mind the gap between the platform and the subway. On Purim, we actually mind the gap. We embrace the fact that we're not there. We embrace the fact that we still have not arrived. We embrace the fact that I'm not as important as I think I am. I'm not as great as I think I am. I'm not as wonderful at all those things that I think I am. Now I want to come back to the books that I wrote. I want to come back to the books I wrote, and I want to answer that fundamental question. Purim is a holiday of laughter and joy. Why is Purim a holiday of laughter and joy? What makes something funny? What makes something funny? I wrote a book on humor. I know what makes something funny. I know how to write a script. I know how to write a skit. I'll tell you what makes something funny. The classic joke of what makes something funny is you see a very wealthy, fancy guy, he's got that big, gaudy, Gvir wealthy watch. Like rich people love wearing these like massive watches. And like he's got to like pick up his hand and he walks around so self-important, so smug. And as he's walking into the big meeting, he slips on a banana peel and he falls over. You'd laugh. Why do you laugh? Because there's a dissonance in the expectations. Because you thought that this very important person was going to come in and be so self-important and be the boss and be so wow and so wonderful. And what happens? They slipped on a banana peel. If the opposite happened, if Khalila, you saw a homeless person, God forbid, someone's really struggling, and they've got no money and they're wearing tattered clothes, and this person slipped on a banana peel, it would not be funny. You would not be laughing. It would be a tragedy. It would be very sad. You'd be like, oy vey, Nebuch, what happened to this person? What's the difference? The difference is the subversion of expectation. What makes something funny, and this isn't my theory, the Maharal writes this, and Schopenhauer, who's a philosopher, writes this. But the Maharal writes this. The Maharal writes what makes something funny is the subversion of expectations. Where you think it's going to be A, B, C, D, and instead it goes A, B, C, Z, and goes all the way to the end. You thought this person was very rich and self-important and the boss, and then it shows they slipped on a banana peel. The setup is the sequence, A, B, C, and Z is the punchline. You need a sequence, and then you get to the punchline. This is what Busha is all about. Busha, and the way we deal with Busha on Purim, is we subvert the expectation. We take the dissonance, we take the gap between where we are, and we subvert it. Instead of trying to get sequential like we do on Yom Kippur, A, B, C, D, E, F, all the way there. Act as if we have everything together. Act as if we're dressed in all white and already holy. We don't do that. We subvert the expectations and we emphasize the dissonance. We emphasize the fact that we're not already there. We build up the humor in a sense to show HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to show one another that it's okay to be honest. It's okay to be vulnerable. And this is the connection between writing a book on humor and writing a book on sin and failure. Because sin and failure, when we don't reach our expectations, when we don't reach to what we want to become, that's what creates the gap. And you have two possibilities for what you do with that gap in your life. You could go on the Yom Kippur path. You could act as if you already arrived, act as if you're already important, act as if you're already rich and you already got the promotion and you already have your life together. But there's another path. There's the path of humor, which is about subverting the expectations and embracing the dissonance, embracing the fact that you're not there yet. And this is how the whole Purim story unfolds. If you look in the Megillah, and Rav Hutner and Pachad Yitzchak points this out, if you look in the Megillah, the whole story of the Megillah is about approaching the Melech when you're not called. Like what the Megillah writes, Asher Avo Lefnei HaMelech Shelo Kedas, that you approach the king when you're not worthy. Because the entire Purim story is about even though you're not worthy, even though you haven't arrived, even though you're not already there, you're still good enough and you're still worthy enough. And you don't have to be ashamed and you don't have to be embarrassed. Because everybody's dressed up the same way as you. Everybody's wearing a mask. Everybody's lo yada. Nobody knows how it's all going to unfold. And this, as we come together, the week of Purim, it's special to be together the week of Purim and talk Purim ideas. It's my favorite yontif. My two favorite Yom Tovim are Purim and Tisha B'Av. I can't get into why right now, but they're my favorite Yom Tovim by a mile. And they're very much connected. But what Purim is all about is that whatever games you're playing, however you're trying to project who you are, whether that's now or later on in life, what you need to learn how to do is allow yourself a moment of honesty, where in your failures, in that dissonance, in that busha, in that boshesh, that delay, you're able to show a little bit of vulnerability and a little bit of honesty, to stop pretending as if and start embracing where you are. And we can all do that together on Purim. And it's my absolute bracha as we come together and share on Erev the week of Purim, a little bit together, that all of us should allow ourselves and one another that vulnerability, Asher Avo Lefnei HaMelech Shelo Kedas, when we're not worthy, when we haven't been called, when there's the maximum opportunity and potential for Busha and for Boshesh, for that experiential delay, to have the confidence and the vulnerability and the graciousness to allow each other and ourselves to embrace ourselves exactly where we are. Kyle, if there are any questions, concerns, I'm happy to stick around for a little bit. This was an absolute joy. It's a real covet for me, a real honor and privilege to share ideas with all of you. I'm happy to stick around. Melnick is like recording a song. Melnick, what on earth is going on your end of the line? I'm already on mute. Who knows? He's talking to his mom.
We're steiging here, Rebbe. We're steiging.
We're steiging. I love the energy, Mel. I love it. What's your first name? Yoni?
Close. But no cigar. Yochanan.
Yochanan.
Shut up. Okay, Rebs, listen to this.
I love you, Yochanan. If you have any questions, you can feel free to let me know. Otherwise, just wishing you a Freilichen Purim. A big, fat, juicy Freilichen Purim. I'm happy to talk other Purim. I can talk about Purim all night, honestly. Tell me, you have a Purim question?
Not a Purim question, but the comment kind of caught me. You said Why Tisha B'Av your other favorite holiday? Curious.
For two reasons. Number one, my measure of what makes a holiday my favorite is the amount of interpretive text that you have to work with. Purim has a Megillah and a Masechta called Maseches Megillah in the Talmud. Tisha B'Av has all of the Talmudic Gemaras that talk about the Tisha B'Av story, and it also has Kinnos. I find the interpretive Torah of both to be beautiful. I also think, and I said this on the Meaningful People podcast, that Tisha B'Av is connected to Purim in the sense that Tisha B'Av is a Purim that has not yet completely unfolded, which is why in the Megillah of Esther, we actually bring in the Tisha B'Av truck. We lane with Tisha B'Av truck for some of Megillah's Esther as a reminder that Tisha B'Av, the day when we mourn the Beis Hamikdash, is a Purim that has not yet completely unfolded. What are my least favorite holidays? I'm so glad you asked. Sukkot and Hanukkah. I have the hardest time with Sukkot and Hanukkah Torah. Doesn't work for me.
You got almost
They're connected, and on a mystical level, Sukkot and Hanukkah are connected too. They're both 8-day holidays with Shmini Atzeres. A lot of Hanukkah Sukkot connection. Textually, the interpretations doesn't work. It doesn't hit me the same way like Tisha B'Av. Tisha B'Av and Purim have Megillas. They have Masechtas. They have texts. There's so much juicy stuff there. I love them. They're both on the nexus between Torah Shebechsav and Torah Sheba'al Peh, the written law and the oral law. They're the only Yom Tovim like that. Meaning there's a Megillah that's part of Torah Shebechsav, and then there's also it's also a rabbinic holiday like Torah Sheba'al Peh, which makes me love them. Hanukkah doesn't have that. Any other questions? Jonathan, you had a question? And I'll just say one other thing. The whole notion of an oral law, the whole concept of the Gemara and an oral law emerges from two holidays, Purim and Tisha B'Av. You understand that, right?
What do you mean?
The whole notion that we have an oral law, the holidays that represent that the Torah that comes from the speaker, the Torah that emerges from our experience, that's Purim. The Gemara says that explicitly in Shabbos, and that's Tisha B'Av. The Gemara this is to I don't know, Kyle. I know this is like 100,000 feet up. When the Gemara in Sanhedrin asks, "My Talmud shel Bavel," what is the allusion for the Gemara, for the notion that we have this public discourse that is the Gemara? What's the pasuk that alludes to the Gemara? Do you know what pasuk they find and where that is? I guess not. Okay, it's from the third parak of Eicha. It's a pasuk that says, "B'machashakim hoshivani k'meisei olam." You placed me in darkness among the dead, which is like, if you've ever hated learning Gemara, don't worry, the Gemara hated it too. They described it as being placed in darkness among the dead. So they got what it was. But the fact that the Gemara finds an allusion for itself in Megillus Eicha is really important to note, and where it finds it. The whole notion that there is a Gemara is a product of the cessation of prophecy and the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. That's Tisha B'Av, and that's also the Purim story. The Purim story, God doesn't speak to us in the Purim story. He speaks through us in the Purim story. That's what Gemara is. That's what Torah Sheba'al Peh is. The Torah of the speaker, as Reb Tzadok would say. We're contractually obligated to quote Reb Tzadok HaKohen, Me'lublin, my Rebbe, not actual Rebbe, but who inspired my thought. Jonathan, what's happening? Lay a question on me.
It's like totally just like different direction. I just wanted to say, one time me and my friend sat down one Friday night, and we're like, what makes things funny? And we both agreed upon after 2 hours that it was Subversion of Expectations. So I was like,
you came up with this.
Yeah, I was like freaking out. I was like, wow, I'm Maharal.
That is exactly, the Maharal writes this in, he writes it in a few places. He writes it when he's talking about Yitzchak, why Yitzchak, his name is after tzachok, after laughter, because he was born when nobody thought he could be born. It was the ultimate subversion of expectations. He was born to a 100-year-old and 99-year-old. The Gemara in Sukkah, has something called a tefach sachuk, which means it means a laughing tefach. That's when you measure the structure of a sukkah and a little part sticks out. So the Maharal writes that that's called laughter because you were supposed to have a very clear-cut border and it passes over the border. It subverts the sequential expectations and passes over it. And this is also what Schopenhauer writes. If you go online, the Stanford Online Encyclopedia, and look about the philosophy of humor, there's one theory called the dissonance theory of humor. That's by Schopenhauer. But the Maharal preceded Schopenhauer by 200-300 years. Any other questions? Yofi, Kyle, was this a disaster? Who knows? That's a part of it. It's great. I love you, brother.
Okay,
This was absolutely.
I want to end with this, just because I've been living with this Torah ever since I heard it. Basically.
When on earth have you heard me say this Torah?
No, not this Torah, the Torah that I'm just going to mention that I want you to speak to. And it's actually the first Torah you heard from our first speaker that sort of got this whole chaver together. And that's my Rebbe and someone who I've become close to, Rav Moshe Weinberger. And and you said we're contractually obligated to mention Rav Tzadok. So this Torah from Rav Tzadok and Tzidkas Tzadok, I believe 242.
254.
254. If you
154. 154. Rav Tzadok writes, the first time I ever heard Rav Tzadok was when I was in 12th grade. I'm sure many of you are in 12th grade. And Rav Moshe Weinberger was giving Mishmar. And I remember, I write about this in my book. I have some serious stuff in my book too about Rav Tzadok. And it was during Mishmar in DRS. I went to DRS for high school. It was the second graduating class of DRS. Which means I graduated in 2002. The year that you graduate is correlated. It's 2021, this year is their 21st class. I'm 2002, I'm their second class. So we were sitting there in Mishmar, and I'm eating, and Mishmar, they used to serve Chinese food. So I'm sitting there eating my beef and broccoli. And, beef and broccoli, it's a good lineup. You're in 12th grade, you could still eat that stuff and wake up the next morning. If I eat beef and broccoli now, I'm 36, I'm out for a week. I have to call in sick for 1 week. I can't stomach it anymore. I don't have that capacity. I don't have that energy. But Moshe Weinberger sits down. I never heard of Moshe Weinberger before. I never heard of Reb Tzadok before. Everybody in the class got a copy of Tzidkas Tzaddik of Reb Tzadok, and he tells us to open up to the 154th paragraph. And before he starts reading, he looks around at the class and says, I need everybody to put away their Chinese food. And I remember thinking as a 12th grader, I'm like, what? What are you about to tell us that can't be said over beef and broccoli? What is there a Torah that is so lofty? It made an impression on me. And Rav Tzadok writes over there, and again, I wrote an article in Tradition. Did you ever read what I wrote in Tradition about the Rabbeim who brought me to Rav Tzadok?
I actually did. I printed it.
I wrote about the 3 Rabbeim who brought me to Rav Tzadok, one of which is Rav Moshe Weinberger, and I repeat the story a little bit there, but Tradition is like a serious button-up journal, so you can't quote all the funny stuff in there. But I quote Rav Moshe Weinberger in the story, and Rav Tzadok says over there, Kishem sha'azim tzarech lahamin ba'Hashem yisbarach, kach tzarech acher kach lahamin ba'atzmo. Kishem, just as a person tzarech lahamin ba'Hashem yisbarach, just as a person needs to believe in God, so too afterwards he needs to believe in himself. Now, this is a very famous line, and it's a beautiful line. I happen to think people don't understand the depths of what Reb Tzadok is trying to say over here, because they usually start with this line, which is a good place to start. If you want to really understand what Reb Tzadok is saying in this line in Tzidkas Tzaddik, then you have to take out his Tzidkas Tzaddik and read paragraph 41, which talks about, Reb Tzadok says something jaw-dropping in paragraph 41, where he says, have you ever heard of the Medrash that when you do a mitzvah, you get a malach, you create an angel? You ever heard that? It's like you create an angel. I heard that in like second grade. I'd always get nervous. Like if you do a bad mitzvah, you get like a bad angel be missing an arm or a finger. It like spooked me out. I couldn't sleep at night in third grade. And Reb Tzadok asks, he said, like, why do you get a malach when you do a mitzvah? So Reb Tzadok says it's because a malach is a shliach, is an agent of God. So we heard most of the mitzvahs through Moshe Rabbeinu. We heard all of the mitzvahs through an agent, through Moshe Rabbeinu. So because we heard the mitzvahs through Moshe Rabbeinu, when we fulfill the mitzvahs, we get an agent of our own, we create a malach. Now Reb Tzadok says something amazing. But there are two mitzvahs we heard directly from God. We heard Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am your God, and we heard Lo Yihiyeh. So Reb Tzadok writes, and you have to look at this inside, Reb Tzadok writes that when you believe in God, when you have the belief in God, the schar, the reward that you get for that mitzvah is you create God for yourself. The same way that you do a mitzvah and you get a shliach, you get a malach, you create a malach, because we accepted that through Moshe Rabbeinu, through a shliach. The mitzvahs that we heard directly from God, the reward for them is you create God for yourself. This is a very profound idea, both mystically and philosophically, the notion that from your very sense of self and from your very knowledge of self, you can create an understanding of God. I have a podcast called 1840, which I don't think is for this audience, but in the beginning of my interview with Aaron Siegel, who is a world-renowned analytic philosopher and a massive Talmud Chacham, a student of Rav Aaron Lichtenstein, I introduce it with this idea. I think either this or my introduction to my interview with David Aaron, one of them. And you could go to 1840.org and you can hear my introduction about that and how I explain that Reb Tzadok. Again, it's paragraph 41 in Tzidkas HaTzadik. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of Reb Tzadok. Anybody here ever heard of Reb Tzadok? Yeah, Ami? Ami, where are you in school? Do we know each other?
Yeah, I'm Ashley Bloom's brother.
Oh, from SAR. Whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so
we're twins.
You're Me'anshe Shlomenu. You're Anash.
Yeah, I'm NYU.
Okay. So you know these Torahs already. Okay.
Yeah.
But that's what Reb Tzadok says in Siman Mem Aleph in Tzidkas HaTzadik, and you can read more. Reb Tzadok influenced everything that I say, everything that I do comes to Reb Tzadok, and I've written a lot about why he has had such a profound influence on me. A Hasidic leader who was born in 1823 and died in 1900, and why I, Bashevkin, the guy wearing a blue shirt, no beard, no payas, no strimal, no bekisha, professes to be a student of Reb Tzadok. Like, I don't know. I don't buy it, Bashevkin. I don't buy it. But I if you understand his Torah and what he represents, you actually would understand that. You would understand that. Any other questions? Call it a night. Okay.
I think you're debating whether to tell another joke or not, maybe?
No, I'm not even going to tell another joke. I was debating to say a Purim Torah from Rabbi Nachman, but they all have to do with drinking, and a lot of you are in high school, so I'm going to skip them.
You brought it up.
I'm going to skip them. God forbid, you can't drink till you're 21. But I will tell you this. Rabbi Nachman says in Likutei Maharan that the verse in Proverbs, I believe, says, Hain Tevi, my only desire, Shaka Ya'aneni, is that God should answer me. My only desire is that God should answer me. Hain Tevi, like Taiva, Shaka Ya'aneni, is that God should answer me. Rabbi Nachman writes in Likutei Maharan and Madura Tidyana, I forgot chapter and verse, he writes that the Roshei Tevos, it's an acronym for Shtia. It's an acronym for Shtia. When you celebrate, when you're joyous, when you rejoice, you have grape juice with friends, it brings out that inner part of yourself, that boils you down to that essential, irreducible part of desire that you just want to transcend and be a part of something larger than yourself, which I believe is what makes us human beings, which what makes us alive, and we should all be zocheh to get in touch with that this Purim. A freilich and Purim, everybody. A good Adar, and hope we could speak again soon. Lots of love to everybody.
Amen. Thank you so much, Rabbi Bashevkin, for joining us.
Take care, friends. Be
Thank you
well.
so much.